there, my name is Kelly Dell with OffTheBeadedPath.BeadStore.com. Thanks for joining me for week 4 of our peyote series. In the previous weeks 1, we talked about flat, even count peyote. Week 2 was odd count peyote. Week 3 was our 2-drop peyote. And today we are going to talk about 3-drop peyote. So let's go ahead and look at what you're going to need to get started. So as with the previous weeks, I've created 2 different patterns for you this week. The first one is actually the free pattern for the week. This one is called They Followed a Star. And you can see I'm going to be using some symbol findings to show you a really unique way to finish off the bracelet. And that one again is free over at OffTheBeadedPath.BeadStore.com. And then this one is called the Paint Drip Bracelet. Now you see that they look very different. This one is made out of all sparkly beads. I used a finding like I did last week. This is just a little oval. And I used a snap to do just like last week's with that cool S-hook. So I wanted to show you, that you could use some different supplies to do that with. So I did that one, and then you'll notice this one I actually made a lot longer because of the fact that I actually used one of the larger snaps that I had on my little card, and I snapped it like that so that way you have to make it a little bit longer so that it will go fold like this. But it's a great way to use up if you have any of the snaps. It's a great way to use those up. And both of these are available on the website. I also have the step-by-step pattern for 3-drop peyote available there as well. I'm going to be using my 1G thread today. You can use any thread you like. I've got a size 12 beading needle. Again, you can use a 10, 11, a 12. I've got my beads laid out in my Bead Easy system by Beads Gone Wild. So I am ready to get started. I'm going to start with 2 yards of thread onto my needle, but you start with whatever length you feel comfortable with. So what I want to take a look at first is the difference between our 2-drop and our 3-drop. So if you'll remember in our last video, we did 2-drop and it was 2 beads at a time. So we picked up 2, we skipped 2, and we went through 2. So if I hold this kind of over the white so you can see, we can see through the bracelet itself, especially on like this dark blue. But if you just have it up here by itself, you don't see those spaces. Anytime that you're not doing, just straight peyote stitch, pick up, skip, go through, then you are going to start to have some space. So with 2-drop, we get a little bit of space, all right? So just a little bit. But now when we go to 3-drop, you can see here, I can visibly see some of the spaces right now as it is. Just through my camera lens, I'm seeing space here, 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 lots of through in here. So, and if I hold it up down here on the black, you see a good bit of the spaces between the beads. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean that you've done anything. It just means that you are taking a longer strip of beads and going through beads. So you're going to have more space. It's just a more open, airy stitch. But this allows you to be able to do some patterns that don't necessarily work when you're trying to do a 2-drop or even a single peyote like this one. So that is the stitch that we're going to do. With our 3-drop peyote, we will be picking up 3, skipping 3, and going through 3. So let's go ahead and get started. To start off the bracelet, I'm going to be using 15 seed beads, which again tells me it's odd count peyote. So you will want to do whatever version of odd count you like. If you did not do odd count, go back to week 2 of this video series, and I talk about 4 different ways that you can do it. So, like I said, in 3-drop peyote, we pick up 3, we skip 3, and we go through 3. So I have rows 1 and 2 threaded on here, and now row 3 tells me I'm going to thread on 9A. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and grab those beads. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, I'm going to grab those beads and just kind of set them over here. So it tells, when I do 3-drop, I'm going to pick up 3. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to skip 3 beads, and I'm going to be working back towards my tail thread. So I skip 3, and then I will go through 1, 2, and 3. So I pick up 3, skip 3, go through 3. And that is what it will look like. So I pick up the next 3 of my pattern. I skip 3, 1, 2, 3. And I go through 3. So 1, 2, 3. And I pull this through. So this is what it should look like so far. So now, again, I have 3 more beads that I need to add for the row. So I'm going to thread on those 3. And then, again, you are going to do whichever odd count you like the best. I like the looping tail thread method, so I've left about a 20-inch, probably not even that long, maybe an 18-inch tail thread here. And I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to wiggle under that tail thread while I keep it tight against my finger, and then not do that. I'm going to go under that thread there. You do not want your beads to go under the thread. You just want the thread to loop under it. And then we are going to pass through the 3 beads that you just added. So that now you should have blocks that look similar to what I have here. So my next row tells me I'm going to put on 6 beads. So because I only have room for 3, 6. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 and come through the next 3 sticking up. And then 1, 2, 3 and come through the next 3 that are sticking up. So you can see we have this, a lot more beads in our row here. And we're just picking them up in our sets of 3. Now, for my next row, it changes it up a little bit. It's going to be 1B, 7A, and 1B. So I've got 1B. And now remember, we're only picking these up in sets of 3. So 1B and then 2 of the 7A beads will be what I pick up, because I'm going to pick up 3. And let me just do it this way. I'm going to pick them up like this. I'm going to lay them out. So 1B, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's see, 3, 6, 7, and then 1B. So this is what my row will consist of. So if you want to do it this way, you can definitely lay out your beads. But if you do it that way, always make sure that you start adding them in a certain direction, and then you pick them up in the direction that you laid them out. Don't go backwards. That's where people get messed up. So of that 7, I'm picking up 2 of the A's there to make up for my set of 3. And then I go through 3. Okay, I'm going to pick up from my little pile here 3 more beads. So then for that last stitch, it's 2, and I've got the 1 there, and that takes up my row, finishes my row, and then I'm going to do my odd count turnaround. So again, you're going to do whichever odd count turnaround you like the best, so that when I finish, now that is what the next row will be. So my next row is real easy. It's 6A is what they say. So I pick up 3, go through, pick up 3, go through. So you see there how it's starting to look and work through. Now this row is just like row 5 where I did this right here. So I can kind of look at what I've got picked up. So it's 1B and 7A. So I know it's going to be like this. And go through 3. Go through. And then 3. And each time I come back to where that tail thread is, that tells me I've got to do my odd count turnaround. Oh my gosh, I just flicked my beads. Oh, for those of you who truly know me, you know that will stress me out. I cannot stand for them to get mixed up. Okay. And so this is our basics of our 3 drop. Again, each time we're picking up 3, skipping 3, going through 3. So they will be building just like this. Now, if you want to know how many rows you've got done, again, you do count these rows exactly like you count your normal peyote stitch. We would count either at a diagonal. So we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, I skipped one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes. Okay. So you can see there, I did it 2 different ways. One way is a zigzag. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Or I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now on 3 drop, I really like to count them at the zigzag like this because it's a little bit easier. So I'm going to keep working on this bracelet and I'll come back and give you a color update so you can see the difference here. So when it's time to add more thread to your project, when you do this in 3 drop, it's just like any of our other stitches. You can see here, I have my long tail thread here. I have my short working thread here. So I'm going to thread on my new thread about 2 yards onto a different needle, and then we are going to add the new thread before we get rid of the old thread. So I have my new thread with just a tiny little tail, and I want it to exit here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass through the bead, the 3 beads this way, so that my new long tail thread will be exiting exactly where it needs to be for the next part of my session here. So I'm going to pull it through just a couple of inches, and then I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to start working this thread up and down through my stacks of 3. And when I pull, especially when I pull like through here where these little, columns of 3 meet, you want to kind of give it a little snug or a little tug, because if not, you may see the thread that will connect those 2 stacks together. So you want to give it a little tug as you work. So again, it doesn't matter the beads that you pass through as long as you won't see the thread. So if I pull it and I barely pull it tight, you see there that thread. So you want to give it a little tug so that way it gets pulled into the stacks and you won't see an in between them. So I'm just going to pass through a few more beads here. Now I'm going to give my new thread, my new long thread, I'm going to give it a tug, holding on to that short tail thread there. And that thread, that new long thread, did not move. So I'm going to just pass through one more stack of beads, put that needle up so I don't lose it, and trim off that short excess thread. So now what I want to do is I want to take my thread that I was working with. I'm going to hold on to my traveling tail thread there and kind of hold the new thread down so I don't have to worry about it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass through a couple of more beads here just to kind of get away from where the new thread is. Oh, good grief, my needle come unthreaded. I know this happens to y'all, but it's fun to see me mess it up, isn't it? Oh, okay. So now I'm going to start weaving in and out with that thread and getting that old thread locked into place so that we don't mess anything up or lose any of our beadwork. Heaven help. Nothing worse than walking around shopping or something and beads start falling off your wrist. Okay, so feel like it's pretty secure there. I'm going to go ahead and come up through one more little stack, and then I'm just going to nip that right there so that now I have my new working thread ready to go, and then I have my traveling thread. So I'm going to continue working on my bracelet. As you can see, I have finished out the length of my bracelet. Now, this one I actually made quite a bit longer because I'm going to show you a different clasp option. This was one that I did as my sample, and I used another found object, which is just a oval ring, and I used that oval ring to clasp using that little sew-on snap like I used in last week's video. So it's a fun way to kind of use and finish out a bracelet. The only issue is that it doesn't stay exactly like I want it to. So that is why I'm going to show you a different sew-on clasp, because I already have, and if you already have this, it's a way to use up some of those sew-on clasps. But I always say this is the one you wear to the Taylor Swift concert because it's so sparkly, and this is your everyday one. That's what I'm going to tell my mom anyways. But so you can see, like I said, I've made this one longer. So I'm going to use the larger size snap in my sew-on snaps. So I used this very end one here, which is a larger size. It looks like it is a 4/0 in the sizing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the snap on so that they snap together like this. Now, I want the beginning to go on top. You could do this, but then you're going to cover up that beginning. So I want the snap to be like this. So when I do that, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I exit out of that middle row of my piece. I'm going to use the snap, and remember, it has a male and a female part. So you have the one side that snaps into the other side, just like that. So you want to pay attention to which one you're putting on and how you're doing it. So since that is going to be the bottom, I'm going to make sure that I put it on like this. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a different way that I sewed on this snap. And let me get my needle threaded really quickly. So you can see I'm coming out of the middle stack of beads here. And then I'm going to go through one of the 4 little openings there on the snap. I'm going to hold the snap, make sure it doesn't flip around. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of hold this back just for a minute where I can see. And I'm going to pass right back down through that same stack of 3 beads. And that way you get tacked just like that. Now I'm going to come through the other hole here. And then guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go through that stack of 3 beads again. So you can see there how it tacks on the edges there. And so what I can do is, so that I can finish out kind of this one side of the little snap first, is I can continue to go through the loop on the snap and then back through that stack of 3 beads. And I can do this several times. You just want to make sure that you're not skipping any beads there on the end. And I'm just going to continue, and you can go from here to here, completely up to you. There's no wrong way to adhere this snap. Now, once you're pretty happy with how secure this side of the snap is, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of lift up the snap, and I'm going to pass through the 3 beads of the next stack right next to it, underneath the little snap, and then down through the next one. And I'm going to lay it down and kind of see. I think I'll go through one more stack. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start by going up through the open loop right there, and then I'm going to pass back through those same 3 beads again. Go through the loop, pass through the same 3 beads. And I'm going to continue to do this until I get it completely secure, and then I'm going to finish off this thread. So you can see that I have that tacked on there now. And so what I'm going to do to this side is I'm going to add thread to this end. And I'm going to add my other snap so that when I do that, it will look like this. So I had my snap here. I have tacked the other part of the snap here so that when you get ready to close it and snap it, it snaps just like this. Now, you can definitely go through and you can add edging to the end if you wanted to. You could add edging to the sides of this if you wanted to. Completely up to you. The snap is just a great way to use up some beads and findings that you have, and you can see there. Now, 2 really unique ways to finish out your bracelets and how to do our 3-drop peyote. Now, when you go to add your clasp to this particular bracelet, I wanted to show you a little bit of a different way versus some of the ways I've showed you the last couple of weeks, because with this bracelet, you can very easily do a decrease and put a clasp and it's completely centered. But I wanted to show you just a little something different. So I'm going to be using this piece here. This is, and I know I'm going to botch this, but Citinos 280 bead ending is what this particular ending is called. It's made specifically for size 8 seed beads, but we're going to use it today. You have a little loop here. This is where you will attach your clasp with jump rings or split rings, either one. But I'm going to be using just a couple of size 15 seed beads today along with my regular beads. Now I've gone ahead and I've gotten rid of the short tail thread that I had left. That was my traveling thread. So now I'm left with my thread here, and it's coming out of that first stack on the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread on 115, the end hole of my finding, and then 115. And then I'm going to go through the next stack of beads here. So instead of 3 of my delicas, I'm going to have a 15, my clasp, and a 15. And when you pull it, just make sure that it doesn't get, any thread doesn't get caught or anything like that on it. So now I'm going to pick up 3 of my black beads and go through the next 3 beads sticking up. And now it's a 15 and go through the loop. And I'm going to pull it all the way through. And then a 15, and we'll go through these 3 end beads here. And so as you can see, that fits perfectly in those spots that we had, so that now I have a little bit of a different way to finish off the end of my piece. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back through and reinforce this a few times, and I'm going to finish off this thread. Once you get your clasp added to this end of the bracelet, then you're going to go to the other end and you're going to finish off the other end exactly the same. I love the finish on this. It gives it a really unique finish. And probably the only thing that I would do different if I used this particular clasp here is I would add a couple of more jump rings to the end, because this will go into the loop, but it is a tight fit. Like, you almost have to get it exactly in the right spot to go in. So I'd probably add a couple of more jump rings there. But you can see what a really nice finished look this gives your bracelet.